thank you for joining us for another edition of the Leadership Cafe, where we talk to some extraordinary people leading remarkable businesses and communities. We're your hosts. I'm Michael Couch.
And I'm Richard Citron. And before we get too far along, we want to make sure to thank our sponsor, Vaco, a global talent solutions company. We are grateful for their support of the Leadership Cafe. And today's special guest, I'm so excited to have Jackie Dixon joining us. Jackie is a dear friend and is retired now, and we don't usually have retired professionals joining the Leadership Cafe, but Jackie is such a leader in the community that we had to have her join us. Jackie was previously Director of Government Relations for Giant Eagle, which is, of course, our local grocery store here, which involved, among other things, lobbying in Washington, D.C., as well as in Harrisburg. And Jackie, when I counted up your bio, there were over 16 community organizations you were involved in, including the University of Pittsburgh. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the University of Pittsburgh Community Research Advisory Board, the BNY Mellon Community Advisory Group, the National Council of Jewish Women, the Heritage Community Initiatives in Braddock, and of course the Allegheny County Regional Asset District. So Jackie Dixon, thank you so much for joining us today on the Leadership Cafe.
Thank you. I'm flattered that I was chosen, particularly since I am retired. Sometimes because you're retired, so much is going on in industry. You see all of these new people in business, and you kind of feel left out.
Yeah.
But I think being so involved in the community has made me feel really inclusive. And I guess when I was working, I always wanted to be involved in the community, and I always wanted to be retired and be involved in the community because you feel that the only person that you have to report to is God. I tell people
that's the new CEO, huh?
But so you have a little bit more freedom to say what you want to say without really considering a company and maybe how they feel. And you're not, you're saying things, but you're not saying things to be offensive. You're saying things to build up people, to give constructive criticism if you are in any way criticizing.
Yes.
As you get older, you get more wisdom.
Sure.
And, I always say when I pray, I don't really ask for things. I just ask God for more wisdom. And if I have wisdom, those things will come into play.
Yeah.
That's great. Jackie, so your community involvement is so extensive. And I'm particularly interested in the Regional Asset District because they serve, they provide so much for the community. Can you talk a little bit about RAD, as it's known, and your role in that, and how RAD serves the community?
Well, I guess I've been retired about 8 years now. I think I retired in 2013, and I really didn't know what I was going to do once I retired. And Rich Fitzgerald called me,
who's county executive,
the county exec, and he said that I want to talk to you about something. And I said okay, and he said, you've been everywhere. Even when he was running, I was at everything that he gave. He even gave me a gold card. He said, now you don't have to pay to come to anything that I have. You can just show up. And so I was in, I think it was the Holiday Inn in Oakland at a jazz event. Tim Stevens does that jazz event every year.
Yeah.
And I'm in there with all of these people. And I think I'm sitting on a stool at the bar, and Rich comes over to me and says, I need to talk to you. Well, all of a sudden you walk out with the county exec in front of all of these people. It's like the police have come in there and arrested you. Because everybody is looking. And we walk outside, and he says that he wanted to put me on the red board. And I was like, what is the red board? And, he said, you've been everywhere. He said, if I go to Sewickley Heights, you're there. If I go to Mount Lebanon, you're there. If I go to Homewood, you're there. If I go to Rankin, you're there. He said, you're all over the place. You know everybody, and you know everything. You know every community, and that's why I want to put you on there. And so I said, okay. And I remember when I was retiring, my boss called me in and says, I don't know what you're going to do when you retire. I don't know where you're going, but don't get off of that red board. And I'm like, what do you mean? You know, because RAD funds Port Authority. And those buses go into the various communities. You know, there's a bus in front of Market District and Shady Side. There's one goes up on Frankstown Avenue, you know, so after the what is it? That not the taxes. What do you call those people who will park in front of the store? They were illegal.
Yeah,
they were illegal, and they would pick people up. Oh, I can't think of what it was, but now the buses take people where they have to go, and so that's important. The jitneys,
there you go.
The jitneys at one time, jitneys were all around inner city stores. And so now there are no jitneys, and the buses, they come right in front of the store and pick people up. So,
very valuable for Giant Eagle then, yes.
He was yes.
So for over 8 or 9 years, I've been on the board, and I think if I had to say what makes me different, I mean, everybody on the board, they're very knowledgeable people, and I respect each one. But what I do is I try to go to everything I get invited to, or be a part of everything I get invited to, because I feel that you cannot know what people are doing just from reading a paper.
Yep.
You know, Richard is talking about all the things I'm involved in, but I'm explaining, you know, what those things are and what they do. So you sometimes just have to go and visit people and talk to them and go to their events and see what they do. And I think people feel that because I'm retired, I have the time to go. But I don't think it's so much that I have the time, because I'm busier than a lot of people who are working. It's just that you make the commitment to do it, because when you're giving money to people, that's very important. That's their livelihood.
Yep.
You know, and you
so
just have.
The RAD board though does a lot more than funds the Port Authority, and certainly
we fund more than 100 organizations. The zoo, the aviary, the cultural trust, the ballet, the symphony.
All the stuff that I like going to.
And there are a lot of little small organizations too. What you might not know is that we have a RAD advisory board, and I'm the liaison for the advisory board. And they are a group of diverse people who are very talented. I mean, if any person on the RAD board stepped down, those people, one of those could step up. So what they do, they come to our meetings, they watch what we do. We give them certain projects to do. They give us suggestions. And then when we get down to hearing people who want maybe $25,000 or less, they would come on board and they would ask the questions. I would chair the meeting and they would ask the questions. So they're very helpful. I can never leave them out. They're very, very helpful and very important to RAD.
Yeah. Which really speaks to the whole community involvement of people with RAD and everybody really contributing a leadership piece to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you describe is very intriguing in the role that you're playing to me, Jackie, because from a leadership standpoint and the research that Richard and I are doing, we're discovering how critical networks are. And high performing, high potential, influential leaders have amazing networks. And so it was great that Rich Fitzgerald recognized that. I see you everywhere. I see you connected with all kinds of people, but there's so much, as you see, there's so much value in that.
I received a ticket in my neighborhood, and I had one of those cars that have the battery, and so you couldn't really hear the motor, and I was going like 40 miles an hour, and I had to go before the magistrate over here. And she was wonderful. I told her about my car. She and the cop laughed when I said I couldn't hear the motor. I didn't know I was going that fast. But she let me go, and she said, "Jackie, slow down." And she said, "You know what? I see you everywhere."
The magistrate.
He said, "If I open up a paper, I see you. If I open up a magazine, I see you. I see you everywhere."
Yeah,
and keep doing this stuff.
Just slow down. Yes.
So, Jackie, we also know that you're involved in diversity and inclusion and education work, certainly the groups and organizations that you're involved with. This has been a challenging time the past year around these issues. Can you speak a little bit to what you've seen and what you're seeing organizations do, and what your thoughts are about what we need to do more of in this community around those issues?
Well, I'm involved in, when it comes to education, Propel School. I'm on the advancement committee at Propel School, and it's strange how I got on that committee. The CEO, the person who started the school, I won't call his name. I went to an event, and he spoke for about 45 minutes. And the woman who put on the event, I said he was boring. He put me to sleep. I don't want to hear him again. He has a monotone voice. And she sent my information to him. She told him what I had said.
Oh, my.
But he contacted me and he said, "I want you to get involved. I want you to be on the advancement committee." I thought that was wonderful. I respect him.
Yes.
You never know that somebody's going to repeat to the person
right
what they said. And so when I came to be a part of the advancement committee, I was working with people like the guy from who just retired, the health plan at UPMC.
Yes.
And they're just great people. So I think education is so important. What I worry about is the kids working from home. I have a friend whose granddaughter was making A's and B's, and now that she's working from home, she's getting C's and D's. When you're off one day and in school the next, or you're off at home and computers go on the blink, I just would like to see kids back in school. And I know as soon as they get back in school, the virus goes up. But, with Propel School, whatever I can do to help the school, to help advance it, to help, all schools need money. They do. Even the colleges now are hurting too. So that's why I think everybody needs to get vaccinated to help keep this pandemic down. So, we can make America normal again.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, with this, the dropout rate has really increased in some schools, in some marginalized communities too, which I think would be an equity and inclusion issue overall. So I think your point about safely and effectively, let's get kids back to school so that they can continue with their development would be important, I believe.
Well, I think it's very difficult to stay at a computer all day. For a kid, sometimes it's hard for me. I mean, I have one Zoom meeting after another.
Don't we know?
But especially, I understand discipline. You have to develop it as you grow older. But for kids, they're watching when the parents are there, as soon as the parents go to work, I hear some of the kids go back home and go back to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or they just get bored, or
Right.
you know, so it's tough. I think the Pittsburgh school system has Dr. Hamlet and that board. They have a difficult job,
Difficult.
very, very difficult job.
Mhm.
So, you know, I understand that. I think the schools like Carlo and Pitt and, you know, all of the schools everywhere. It's just really, really difficult. Really.
Yeah. It's so Rich and I do a lot of work with boards of directors, and you do always run into some amazing leaders there. But you know, given the challenges that the boards and organizations were addressing through 2020, what did you see the boards were doing that you thought were particularly effective or really made a difference in addressing the challenges of 2020 and probably beyond?
I think boards have to get more involved. If there's someone with expertise, if you have computer expertise, or business expertise, accounting expertise, you've got to do more than come to a board meeting. When I was on Carlo's board, I decided that I wanted to get into the master's program for professional leadership because I felt that I could not be a board member unless I was in the classroom and experience what the students were experiencing. You know, you put people on boards because they have big companies or they have access to money, but you really need to know the organization that you are in charge of.
Yep.
And so in knowing the students, I could come back to the board meeting and talk about things that they were not aware of. Or talk about things that were happening in the classroom that they were not aware of and things that were needed. I did get into trouble one time. Not with the board. Not with the board. I was carrying a straight A average, and we were reading some book. I've forgotten what it was, because you know you have to read a lot of books. And in it, I disagreed with the instructor. And I told her, you've been an educator all your life. You never worked in business. And when you're in business, you know, you get a ram of what's going on. And so you're only speaking from an educator's perspective. I don't think she liked it. She didn't mind it until the class, who were all grad students, agreed with me.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like your point about the board members have all this wisdom, you know, behind them. As you said, you want to just building your wisdom. Well, if you don't bring that to the board, what good is that? So the idea of understand the business and bring your wisdom. I like that mantra or model there. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Jackie, over the course of your career, if you were to think about, or kind of talk a little bit about the keys to leadership that you've discovered, what would some of those be?
I want to go back to when I started to work for PPG in 1971. You know, I would apply for jobs, and I remember the guy in personnel just told me I couldn't do it. I mean, he didn't consider anything. He just told me I couldn't do it. But I happened to get in the Treasury Department, and I worked with this guy, and we managed a $200 million portfolio.
Wow.
The two of us. And the guy wanted to go on vacation. He had not been on vacation. So that meant that I had to manage it alone. And I did. And I think it gave me a lot of confidence about money and managing money. I consider myself a very good manager of money. I think I'm better in business than I have been in love.
Well, we all have our strengths.
Yeah, I'm much more comfortable in business. So, I think it gave me a lot of confidence about business. So if you can manage this kind of money for this company, you know, you got to be able to manage your own and make money for yourself too. Yeah. And I think I see a lot of people who do that, but when it comes to their own management, You know, I really don't think they really do a good job, but they do a good job for businesses. But if
Yeah.
you're going to do a good job for business, you have to do it for yourself too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In your comment, when Richard and I asked that question of other leaders, we get the same thing. Where did that your wisdom come from? It was from navigating a challenging experience, learning something new, and building your confidence from it. We hear that over and over. Education is important, but building wisdom through experience is a great another great mantra. Or
It really is,
motto.
and I think when I came to Giant Eagle, I've been there a few years, and I received a promotion too. And I was looking at when we'd open stores, because we were in Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, and we would open stores and we would have all these sales. And after the sales ended, the people would go back to Kroger and all of that stuff. I mean, they would. So I had a boss who I think really listened to me. And I said, what we need to develop a relationship with elected officials, because they are the gatekeepers for the communities. And if we do that, I think that would help us to maintain our status in the stores. And he said, okay. He said, okay, you write it up.
Yeah, you go do it now.
You go do it. You go do it. Okay. So I called a friend of mine in, I think it was Cleveland, who had an HR. And I said, I've got to write up this position. I have no idea. And he said, go into monster.com and look at the guy at, what's that in Florida? No, the place where you go and do all those rides.
Disney World.
Disney World, that's right. Go to Disney and find out what he does, because he does everything. Everything.
Yeah.
So I went and I looked and I said, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And I wrote it up. And I knew it would get passed, because I knew nobody in our HR department knew enough about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so it did. And what I did was I started going to every event that I could. I mean, if
there's a pattern here we're hearing. So.
Oh yeah, I was traveling. I was in Ohio because we were in Cleveland, and I had gotten to know the governor of Cleveland, the mayor of Cleveland, and so when they have events, I make sure that I was there.
Right.
And so you locally, I was going to see everybody, and then I was at an event, a breakfast, and I was talking to Jim Furlow. Remember Jim Furlow?
Yeah.
And he said something that was very antagonizing, and not about me. And I went back and I told my boss, and he said, "Oh, what he's saying is that we don't give him any money." So I said, "Well, then, we need to do something. We need a pact." And so, thanks to Danny Shapiro, who was very involved in Giant Eagle, he pushed that. So what I said, okay, if you're vice president, if you were vice president above, you could contribute to the, you weren't for us. You weren't for us, but so I said, let's do this. If someone is having an event, I'll go deliver the check to them, because if I send you a check, it gets lost. You're getting 1 million checks.
And you're not building a network or relationship. Like
you're not building a network or relationship. But if you, and I would take my camera, I would go take a picture. You got to do what works. You are creating a totally new area in a company that had never done this before.
Excellent. Yeah.
Right.
What a great
So
idea.
you've got to be innovative. You've got to do things. I always say a star is someone who does what others do not do.
Yeah.
So you gotta do much more than the average person would. So, when you're doing government relations, you have to understand how important the community is. And so I would go to community events too. You're going to government relations events. And so sometimes, you're out during the day and you're in the office at night when everybody's gone home. And one day I'm in the office and someone knocks on the door, and it was the maintenance person. And she said, I don't know where you're going. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know where you're going, but you got to get the hell out of here.
There's a limit to your network.
Yes.
I had no idea it was that late, but it was so quiet, and I could get done what I need to do. And luckily, I didn't live that far, from work. So I think those 2 things are most memorable. I think also the rapport that I had with David Shapiro, who was the CEO at the time, and with the foundation. They were wonderful people. He believed in me. I could say a lot of things to him, but he knew I was in the community. I'm a member of the Hispanic Chamber. I'm a member of the latest Hospital Aid Society at Montefiore. I'm a member of I'm a life member of the National Council of Jewish Women. And so I go to an event and his wife, Cindy, is there. And one of my friends, Lynette Letterman, was being honored. And David's wife comes over to me and said, you need to be in this organization because we do a lot of community service.
Yep. And
I'm saying, oh, I do? I don't know. And so I they gave me the information. I came back and I filled out the information, and I had John Eagle to send a check, and I became a life member. So,
it's marvelous.
But you have to, when I was at Carlo, there was a sister named Sister McCann, and she did a podcast one day, and she said, get to know as many people as you possibly can, and get to know people who don't look like you,
exactly,
or who don't necessarily think like you, or who don't live where you live. And so I've always thought about that, and thought that was so very, very important.
Yeah, that's amazing advice, and it shows how you can be an influencer without being on social media too. So it's a great example of that, of how leaders build networks. And
I like to think of leadership as more of influencer as opposed to authority. People tell me all the time that I have influence, and if it's good influence, that's what's important.
Yes.
Way to go.
If it's good influence, if what I'm doing, you can copy it or you think it's good, that's what, if I'm in influence, I have a friend who always says, well, you don't know how much of an influencer you are. And I said, maybe that's good. because if you did, maybe that power would go to your head, or maybe you wouldn't be as kind a person as you are. Maybe being in the dark about your influence works better. And that's what maybe God wants me to be in the dark about. He doesn't want me to know how much influence I have, because it might make me change.
Great insight. Great insight.
Thank you.
Well, Jackie Dixon, we want to thank you for joining us today. This has been an amazing discussion, and your work in the community. Thank you for your work in the community, and thank you for sharing your ideas about networking and influencing, and your wisdom. Obviously, God has been listening to your prayers and answers. And I know our listeners have picked up some great ideas about how they can strengthen their own leadership through these ideas you've shared with us. Jackie, is there a good way for people? Do you want people to reach you? Is there a good way for them to reach you through LinkedIn or through an email? How would you prefer?
I would say Facebook.
Facebook.
I think, but Facebook or my email, Jackie.Dixon@outlook.com.
Jackie.Dixon@outlook.com.
Just no solicitations.
No. Just
Jackie, I don't know if you have a copy, but Mike and I are going to send you an autographed copy of our book.
Oh, thank you.
Strategy-Driven Leadership for you to peruse, and share your thoughts with us. Hopefully you won't say it's the worst book you've ever read. We'll keep our fingers crossed. We, of course, want to thank our sponsor, Vaco, for helping make the Leadership Cafe an important place for all of us to visit with some of our most amazing community leaders like Jackie Dixon.
Oh, you so kind.
Remember, you can hear this podcast on Mike's and my website, as well as the Vaco website, vaco.com. Check them out. There's a lot of great information about Vaco on their website. You also see this podcast posted on your favorite sites for podcasting like Spotify and Pocket Casts. We'll be releasing these every Thursday, so look for Jackie Dixon soon. We want to also thank our producer director extraordinaire, Michelle Jurazowski, for providing such amazing support. And for all of us on the Leadership Cafe, thank you for joining us. I'm Richard Citron.
And I'm Michael Couch, and we look forward to connecting with all of you on the next Leadership Cafe. Thank you very much, Jackie.
And thank you guys so very much. I sincerely appreciate it.